We've seen how complicated the process of tax compliance is. But for a businessman who runs a huge grocery chain of stores, the degree of complications would seem pretty small because his profit can support an entire expert team which can take care of the entire tax compliance formalities, and he has to only bother about his normal routine business. But for a small shop owner like your neighborhood grocery store, the degree of such complication is much higher. Even the tax amount on his products would be a larger percentage of his overall profit. Appointing or affording an expert team would not be affordable for him. It is this inequality that the composition scheme is trying to fix, the canon of equality, to bring the small and the large business at par with each other. Section 9 of Draft Model Law talks about the composition scheme. We've seen that the composition scheme is trying to achieve the canon of equality, economy, and convenience. The first one is equality. We know that there are various ranges of businesses, from sprawling huge business houses like the Tata's Reliance to small local kiosks selling tea and biscuits in the neighborhood by the roadside. So, if all the tax laws that all these various types of businesses have to comply are equal, then it is unfair. There is no equality in the tax system, and the canon of equality is absolutely defeated. That's what the composition scheme is for. It is only for the small businesses, and it is an option for the small businesses. Nobody is enforcing them to take on the composition scheme. It is their option whether they want to choose or not. So you can say that the composition scheme is somewhat like a wedding ring, a proposal to accept or reject. It gets tricky. Well, wedding proposals are always tricky to accept or reject, and that's the same case with composition scheme. Should you accept it? Should you not? I would say the answer to this very important proposal depends. Well, I know I'm being very diplomatic, but a choice always depends on something. The pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of the composition scheme and the normal scheme. So in our relationship, let's say if you opt for the composition scheme, you're happily married like the couple at the top. And if you don't, you're divorced like the couple at the bottom, where the girl has proposed but the guy turns away and rejects her proposal. So let's just first summarize whatever we've discussed so far, that the composition scheme is an option for small businesses to pay tax at a prescribed rate prescribed by the government. We'll come to this term later on. And by opting into the scheme, you're definitely going to reduce the complications of procedural compliances. And as it is with wedding proposal, there are terms and conditions attached. Right now, I'm going to give you an overview of the composition scheme, and later on, as we progress, we'll go deeper into each of these in great detail. If the taxpayer decides to get married to accept the composition scheme, the compliance would flow very smoothly with less complications, and the taxpayer would definitely save money from not having to maintain a team or an expert to handle his tax compliances. Isn't it all good? Wait before you conclude. If you opt for the composition scheme, you will lose out on your right to collect tax from customers and your right to claim input credit on your purchases. So you cannot collect tax from customers, you cannot claim input credit, but you will have to pay tax to the government at reduced rates, of course, but there's the balance that you'll have to maintain. You're saving up costs on tax team, systems, and experts, but you're losing out on collecting tax and claiming input credit. It is up to you to decide which side is favorable, whether you're saving more or you're losing more. That brings us to the other side of the coin, that you reject the proposal. You follow the normal scheme, you will have to comply with complicated procedures. and you'll have to hire staff, experts, auditors, systems, all of which we've discussed earlier, but you'll also be able to claim input credit and collect tax. So you don't really have a tax expense coming into your books of accounts, which you'll have otherwise if you opt for this scheme. And so you're losing out because you're incurring cost of a tax team, system and experts, but you're also saving because you don't have to incur any tax. You can claim input credit and collect tax. So it is this balance that is the decision point for you to accept or reject the proposal. Apparently, this couple has got it right. I'm willing to accept you for who you are if I figure out who you are. If you don't know exactly what you will lose or gain by opting for composition scheme, how are you supposed to say yes or no? That's what this section of our journey in GST is going to help you with. Let's get into the details of composition scheme and figure out what actually it is.